And thank God for the day he was born. We are here because we understand that re-electing this great president is about us, it is about our children, it is about our grandparents, it is about our grandchildren, it is about our community, it is about our present, and it is about our future.
That was then. Harris was a supporter who'd gone from the ground field operations of Iowa, as I've told you about how that's relevant, all the way up to becoming a senator eventually. But this was long before vice president, long before she was seriously rumored for the barrier-breaking path she's on today. Harris is now in the position to hire just about whoever she can in the Democratic Party, and that's why it's big news that broke Friday going into the weekend that she's also tapped Obama's victorious campaign manager, David Plouffe. He joins her campaign in a kind of unique role because as the former campaign manager, he can nominally report to anyone, but ultimately is at the top talking to Harris, and his assignment is the campaign's goal, the path to 270, the number of electoral votes you need. She is also reviewing running mate options, speaking to several people over the weekend. As you've heard, we are bracing for that announcement tomorrow with all of the special coverage that you'd expect. Of course, if it leaks out earlier, we'll bring that to you as well, but that is expected to be the big news tomorrow. The Harris campaign is building on momentum as well with virtual rallies and Zooms that have been tapping these different groups and also raising money online. I'm sure you've heard about some of them. These are just a few that we've put on the screen. You can see how big they get. Most of the faces, the majority of thousands of faces, not seen on any single screen. Those are selections. Now the longtime liberal activist and self-identified senior, Jane Fonda, is teaming up with Bernie Sanders and Bette Midler for a special call. It is called Elders for Harris. It's another nod to how the campaign's youth excitement doesn't come at the expense of any other group. Ben Stiller, D.L. Hughley, Jason Bateman are also doing a Comics for Kamala huddle. Now, does this buzz go beyond the activists and donors? Well, new numbers show a 14-point jump. That's 14 points in the jump of black voters who are telling pollsters now they plan to vote as opposed to before when Biden was at the top of the Democratic ticket. Now, that doesn't mean they're all voting only for Kamala Harris, and it doesn't mean she's going to win in November. I've told you we're very careful with what we interpret polls to mean, but it does show a kind of bump in enthusiasm and excitement about the election after Harris announced. Meanwhile, some red-leaning states are back in potential play, according to Axios, citing Georgia, Arizona, and North Carolina as places that at least Trump will have to spend money on defense, which is a shift. Harris is prepping the running mate announcement, while the blowback to J.D. Vance on the Republican side has become something that he has to openly address out loud in interviews.
Some people are saying you were the wrong pick for Trump's running mate. What are you doing about it?
I recognize that there are a lot of folks, even in the GOP establishment, and certainly on the far left, who don't like the fact that Donald Trump picked me.
According to the polls, J.D. Vance is the least liked VP nominee in decades.
I actually take their criticism as a badge of honor.
Well, if criticism is a badge, Vance must be cooking up a special reaction for this new little moment from Nancy Pelosi, who seemed downright giddy about J.D. Vance's baggage for the Republican ticket. This is from her new CBS interview.
Did Donald Trump make a mistake when he chose J.D. Vance?
Oh, I think it was a great choice.
A great choice spoken by the opponent, meaning great for the Democrats, bad for the Republicans. Now, that might be a natural reaction. J.D. Vance has not had the best rollout. It may also be something we see a lot in campaigns and politics, which is projecting strength. But remember, the efforts to project strength, enthusiasm, or other things the Democrats wanted a month or two ago were not working. Now, you don't have to ask Republicans or random independent voters. You could ask the Democratic Party itself, which did something so unusual and extraordinary that everyone is still just taking in the reaction. But it did something that, as you've heard, had never been done this late in a cycle. It basically told the sitting president, thank you, you're great, we love you, quote unquote, is something Speaker Pelosi also said in that interview last night regarding Biden, but we need to make a change as a political party. We are just weeks into the change. So far, it is working by every measurable way that you look at campaigns. The ad spending I mentioned in those normally red states, the crowd sizes that have Trump rattled, the record fundraising numbers that not only smash what the Democrats were doing, but smash all Republican and Trump records. So in all these ways, it's working. But that doesn't mean it's worked yet. There are 90-plus days to go, and there are people around Kamala Harris who are saying the enthusiasm is so good and it's a good problem to have. They want to remind everyone they are still running against the former president who's been up in the polls for a long time. They are still running basically from behind, and on the calendar, on the schedule of who's had time to plan and build field organizations and build networks, well, they're running behind by many, many months. So we get into both sides of that equation with someone who knows all about both sides of these party battles, former RNC chair and our MSNBC friend Michael Steele, who's with me in 90 seconds.
Dad, target school list assist finds my list. So I'm totally ready for class, which is great because we can both be forgetful. Weird, I remember tying them.
The Mary Tyler Moore Vision Initiative is dedicated to advancing medical research to preserve and restore the vision of people living with diabetes. To learn more, please go to marytylermore.org, because the sight you save may be that of someone you love.
MSNBC Live Democracy 2024, Saturday, September 7th in Brooklyn, New York. Join your favorite MSNBC hosts at our premier live audience event. Visit msnbc.com/democracy2024 to buy your tickets today.
If you could have anyone, living or dead, as your perfect running mate, who would it be?
Muhammad Ali.
Ooh, Muhammad Ali.
How you like that?
How you like that? Not a bad idea. I'm joined now by Michael Steele, former RNC chair and host of The Weekend. Welcome. Great to have you start the week, sir.
Yeah, it's good to be with you. I guess you want someone who floats like a butterfly and stings like a bee.
Amen. And can rope-a-dope sometimes. Sometimes you got to take a punch for all of us.
Important feature. Yeah.
For all the boxing historians. I walked through some of the numbers that are clearly good and why the New York Times is reporting even Trump, a known liar, in certain rooms isn't lying about it, but actually trying to absorb and figure out what to do about it. But I also mentioned that by a lot of metrics, the Democrats, whoever was at the top of the ticket, were in a close race or behind recently. And that's probably maybe still the case. And they're certainly behind, as I mentioned, on the calendar. What do you see in that duality now as we're in sort of week 3 of Harris's nomination?
You know, it is a phenomenon of politics to witness what we have and to see the organization come together the way it has. I, was very, very skeptical of the transition, largely because of what I was hearing from Democrats. And what I was hearing was an effort to set aside the incumbent president when the base was consolidating around him, had no real inclination to set him aside. Yeah, they were concerned about the age thing, who were planning to be in the battle. So cutting open that unknown in the fabric of politics really raised the question for me, how quickly could you restitch it? How could you get it back together and move forward, even though now that piece of the fabric is weakened because, there's still people out there who have feelings for Biden. But what has happened is the transformation from Biden to Kamala has been so complete and in one sense seamless in the way they've been able to galvanize that base around her as they were around Joe, bring back the money, bring back the party officials, And now, as we just saw this past weekend, bring Republicans to the table as part of that coalition building that they need to do, no wonder Trump and his team is rattled. They need to be, because this type of cohesion is something that wasn't in play earlier in this campaign, as recently as up to and certainly after that debate. And now it is. And the Trump team has to figure out, it's not going to be enough to say, oh, well, I think she's black, or she told us she's not, and all that crazy BS. They're going to have to come at this from a different perspective. And quite honestly, don't know what that is right now, because what you're seeing is folks who absolutely do not want Donald Trump to be the president of the United States now cohesively rallying around Kamala in a way that they weren't necessarily doing around Joe Biden.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. As I've mentioned, some of it can't really be rushed or faked. No. When certain people, groups come together this fast, it's self-organized, which, again, the Obama campaign was able to tap, and they had the time to do it, but some of that was authentic passion. I think everyone remembers. Right. Two items for you on the music and the crowds. Last week was Megan Thee Stallion's week, and we covered that, and we gave viewers context about 2 years ago. She was doing music videos, taking on red-tide, hypocritical Republican politicians. She's not new to the female freedom chant any more than Harris is new to being involved with these artists, which is why, again, it struck many in Atlanta as authentic. But we're not going to stop just at the hip-hop and R&B, Michael. Today I turned to folk in Wisconsin. Reading from this article from NPR, she's in his town, Bon Iver, to perform at Harris rally in their hometown in Wisconsin. The campaign's ability to leverage a diverse set of talent, including Beyonce, draws a contrast not only to Trump, but NPR argues to Biden's reelection bid, which was not seeing this type of energy, again, from Atlanta to folk. And then further from that New York Times article we mentioned, if Trump had looked up from his teleprompter, they report, at one of these recent rallies, during these 90-minute speeches, he would have seen his own supporters slipping out of their bright blue seats headed for the exit slowly but surely across every stand and section they streamed out. The article continued, this happens on every rally to a degree, in fairness, but noting that an hour into the speech, the Atlanta crowd, which was his response, of course, Michael, to the Megan Thee Stallion Harris event, quote, had emptied out more than usual like Madonna. Trump often keeps his crowds waiting for an hour past the scheduled start, which doesn't help the situation. Your thoughts on the crowds of it all and the culture of it all, and by culture, I mean from Atlanta to Wisconsin, from hip-hop to folk.
No, I think that's a good place to put your finger, Ari, because there are narratives that emerge in both of those spaces, both in terms of the political culture of a rally, right? When to start it, how to run it. It has a rhythm, it has a beat, and I think a lot of folks in Trump's orbit are used to that, and now they've grown tired of it. They've grown bored with it. It's not enough to just go fly off the handle against some left-leaning, liberal. There's got to be something else, and Donald Trump can't deliver that something else because he's maxed out on all of it. He's maxed out on the grievance. He's maxed out on the retribution. He's maxed out on the escapism of otherism. He's maxed out on the racism. And so at a certain point, people just go, okay, well, we're about an hour in and he hasn't started yet, so I'll give him 15 minutes and I'm gone. On the music side, it's a very interesting cross-section as well, because when you look